I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the first item on the agenda this evening. Welcome, everybody. Sorry. Glad to have, looks like we have some visitors, so always nice to have visitors. First item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. We have split out the legal bills this time, Liz, so
Yes, I noticed.
we don't need to move those, so that's good.
Thank you, Carol.
To Carol, so is there any other changes to the agenda this evening?
I have none.
And I move we approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Roll call.
I have a motion by Anderson, second by Munda. Ms. Campbell?
Yes.
Mr. Walls?
Yes.
Mrs. Conway?
Yes.
Mrs. Biondi?
Yes.
Mr. Munda?
Yes.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
I have 6 yes, motion carries.
Okay, the next item is the reception of visitors. This is a part of the board meeting where if anybody wishes to address the board, they may. So if there's any visitors here who would like to have their 3 minutes of fame, we'd love to hear from you. Okay, we don't have any visitors wishing to address the board, so we'll move along to the president's report. And the first item on the president's report is the IASB resolutions for the 2016 Delegate Assembly on November 19th, 2016, which this year will have Barb is back, so Barb will be our delegate this year, is that?
Yep.
Thank you.
Great.
Okay, does anybody have any comments? I know we've had it for a month now, so I don't know if anybody had any comments on any of the suggested actions by the IASB resolution.
No, I agree with all of what they had recommended, and I don't know if Liz or Catherine, you have anything that you want to add.
My only comment, and I don't know if you're willing to speak on behalf of the district, but the reaffirming of the position for charter schools, I think, is really important. I just learned approximately a week ago about a documentary that was done in April of 16 and then released to DVD in January of 2016. It was initially released in October 15, then went to DVD January 16, and it's called Killing Ed, ED. And Killing Ed talks about the corruption that's going on in the charter school movement. And one of the individuals in that documentary is a woman who was one of the original supporters and advocates for charter schools. She had worked for the U.S. Department of Education. She knows a professor at which University in New York. And at the end of the documentary, she said, all I can tell the American people is 3 words: I was wrong. And so now she's on a mission to expose what is going on in the charter schools. And at the end of the documentary, it lists Indiana, Illinois, Pennsylvania, and I believe it was Ohio, that were a part of an FBI raid. And as I looked further, this was reported last year by the Chicago Sun-Times. And there was an 85-page search warrant that was issued in the United States District for the Northern District of Illinois, which documented evidence of crimes, contraband, fruits of crime, property designed for the use and intent to commit a crime, and it had to do with, there was a special agent from the U.S. Department of Education, Office of Inspector General, and it had to do with fraud with the E-rate federal program. And apparently it still is an ongoing investigation. It's being headed in Cleveland, and our state is one of the states that's being looked at. So I think until they get a handle on what's going on and the depth of corruption, the Illinois School Board Association should be advocating on behalf of the school districts to do everything they can to put a halt on the State Charter Commission and to lobby our governor to say, until there's a handle on what's going on, and people know what the extent is of this investigation and the extent of the corruption and the allegations of this fraud, it needs to be put on hold. So if there's any way that you could make a statement and encourage all of the delegates to take back to their district the importance of getting that documentary. You can get it almost anywhere. You can get it at Walmart, Barnes & Noble, Target. You can order it online. You can also go to their website. Like, we could go and get an educational license, so we could actually host a viewing, maybe at the Gurney Library, with Woodland and Gurney 56. But it's really important, and I think that their position to continue to reaffirm that position, which is number 13, is incredibly important to public education.
Works for me.
Thank you, Catherine.
Okay, so we're going to go down to the conference, so I'm sure there's many good things to go see, and everybody spread out, see a lot of different things, and we'll look forward to hearing from everybody when they come back. We're going down this weekend, so it's always a very educational experience for all of us, so, and they have a little trade show too, so that's always good. Okay, there's a committee report on the insurance committee.
We have two insurance committee minutes. The first one is the amended minutes from the September 28th meeting. That meeting, and we presented at the last board meeting, and it had a series of questions, and we've included the responses in those questions. At that meeting, we had a broker that does Racine School Districts present some information. The other set of minutes are the October 18th minutes. At that meeting, we had a broker that we work with through a company called Deployant, and our co-op. She presented information on self-funding versus co-op funding. Both meetings went almost 2 hours long, so there was a lot of information that we're gathering and a lot of fact-finding that we're gathering on pieces to look for and questions to ask when evaluating the insurance services that we're receiving. So both those minutes are attached for your approval.
Carol, I had a question.
Sure.
Maybe I misread it, but in the first set of minutes, the September, they were talking about how we could cut costs by paying $20 per month versus $42 per month per employee. We pay that much now? And what exactly does that get us?
We pay right now in the cooperative a fee to Blue Cross Blue Shield to administer our claims, and that would not go away unless you were with a fully funded product. We pay for audits and accounting of the co-op. We pay for advisory services. So as far as whether the cost would go down, we've learned in subsequent meetings that it really depends on how the insurance is delivered. So while the broker that we had talked to threw out that number, that was very generic, and it would have to be tailored to the type of insurance services that we were receiving.
So what you're saying is we don't pay $42 per month per employee?
We actually pay we pay more, but that includes our stop loss. So stop loss insurance is very expensive. But we will be visiting, we have an insurance committee meeting tomorrow at 3:30, and we will be visiting those costs in a self-funded realm and a cooperative realm, which we're in now.
So last year when we did the insurance, I remember the premiums were very high, and we actually dialed them back so that we were not building up our reserve as quickly as we might.
That's correct. And really what we're coming to learn is there's two elements to our insurance rates. It's our claims experience, stop loss insurance, and fees. And I think once you get the minutes from the next meeting, or if you're able to attend the next meeting, you will see really how everything comes together into a total rate. But you're right, the insurance rates did go up significantly. Our reserves have gone down significantly, and that will be apparent with some of the information that we're presenting at the insurance committee tomorrow.
Where's the meeting tomorrow?
Oak Lane, MOC 2 at 3:30.
Oak Lane, see what?
It's called Conference Room MOC 2.
Oh,
OC2.
I would like to comment just on the September. I think they had some good suggestions in that we need to better educate our employees on what's available and how they can reduce costs for us. Now, and at that meeting, it was that meeting, the man, Mr. Farrell, said he didn't think the Cadillac tax would occur. But we have to plan because, we don't know that it will or will not. It's supposed to, and whether it does or not. But I think he had some really good suggestions, and I'm glad you had him to come and speak and that you included those in the notes to us.
Thank you. We're very happy to have had that information from him.
I think it was very helpful.
It has been. Both meetings have been very well. I think we've gotten very good information out of both of our meetings so far, and tomorrow we'll continue that.
Rick?
To piggyback on that, I think that it's, some of the changes can also put actually more money in our employees' pockets. They're actually taking home more if we come up with a plan where it comes out before tax. So there's all kinds of different ways that in actuality, they're going to be paying less.
We right now have what's called the cafeteria plan, and our premiums are pre-tax. So the employees pay net of tax right now.
Well, I just think that looking at these different options, and then, as this committee said, making sure that they're well educated
Yes.
on the differences and the advantages.
Yeah. We're really doing the deepest dive that we've done, I think, in the 13 years that I've been here on this. So we're very happy with how it's progressing.
Very good. Thank you, Carol.
You're welcome.
Always good to try to keep the insurance premiums down because a lot of them went way up this year.
Yes, they did.
The Obamacare and everything, when some of them jumped 60–70%, so it's been a difficult year. Okay, that is the end of the president's report. We'll move on to the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Before we get there, I do actually have one thing that I would like to do for recognition. Most people might not know this, but I know it. And, today is actually Illinois School Board Member Day, and each year annually, we want to make sure that we recognize school board members across Illinois for their volunteering of time.
Is this where the raise comes
This is
in?
it. Tripling,
000 is still 0.
the flexibility that our board members, specifically Mr. Drake, who's not here this evening, but the flexibility that they've shown, their willingness to go above and beyond for the community have been excellent. I feel blessed to work with all of you individually and as a team. So if you would all join me in recognizing our board members.
Thank you.
And we are excited that the Illinois Association of School Boards, which is one of the 3 partners of the III Conference, provide good leadership and support for board members as they commit their time to their local community. So it's an awesome organization of which all of our local board members participate. Also in the superintendent's report, we have a bunch of things this evening that we're hoping to get to. But before I get to some of those items, I just want to give our normal FOIA report. Since our last meeting, we had 2 FOIAs come in, one from Jared Bertucki of the Better Government Association, who wanted information on our collective bargaining agreement, administrative contracts, our budget, legal settlements, and our payroll. And Elizabeth Gordon wanted some information on our district IEP numbers, the number of students that had homebound services, the number of students that are in special ed relatives or overall population, our budget of special ed services, and related costs, related special service costs to special ed programming. So those were the two FOIAs that came in since after our last meeting. Also in the board packet were our monthly attendance, suspension, and enrollment reports. And we have a treasurer's report, Carol?
Yes, you've got, included is the September treasurer's report. There's a little bit difference between last year's numbers and this year's numbers, and they're due really to timing and some different things that we've done. I've listed the major components of why you're seeing a difference between the surplus and deficit from last year and this year. Still looking at going forward, we're looking at ways to reduce the deficit. So that is a plan that's been ongoing, and I think once you see October's treasurer's report, you'll see more comparability. But we're really, even though it doesn't look like it, really on track to start working down that deficit. And we're targeting that and tracking that. So there's really not a whole lot of what that I'd like to say more about September, but I have included why you're seeing such a difference in surplus or deficit.
That extra payroll will do that to you.
Yes, being on 26 payrolls, last year we saw that third payroll come in October, this year it came in September. So that's one of the big variances.
Thanks, Carol. We also, it's my pleasure to introduce Liz Nelson. Liz is resident, alum, and representative to Warren from the Lake County Health Department. And so one thing we wanted to give a presentation on is our Illinois Youth Survey data. And if, Pat and Greg, why don't you guys step up here too, just in case there's any other questions that came out of our student assistance programming meeting. We may not need you, but in case we do, I want you guys up here too. But Liz does an awesome job interfacing with a number of schools in the area, including Warren. And so when we get that, our Illinois Youth Survey data, we at least want to pull out some kind of the important bullets. The survey is very comprehensive. She's going to talk about that. But there may be some highlights or things specific to Warren or our kids that maybe we should keep on our radar. So I think that's your slide, Liz. And feel free to introduce anything else about the health department or any other work you do. So.
Thank you. So we really, truly appreciate that your school district continues to participate in the Illinois Youth Survey. We were very fortunate this year that we had 20 out of the 22 high schools in Lake County participate. One of them had been using a different tool. They're jumping on the bus finally this year, so we only have one loaner that we have to get them on the bus. And then we've got a very rich pool of data for our county. We have a little bit more work to do on the middle school level, but we're really excited about the information. So the survey has been used in our state for over 20 years. We collect information. The health department is one of the primary users of this information, but it is also compiled into a county report that is used by multiple countywide agencies, including NICASA, the Lake County Injury Drinking and Drug Prevention Task Force, and many others, to guide their programming, especially as it relates to youth. So there's information in here about youth drug use, around bullying. There's 2 mental health questions. There's some information in here on nutrition. And then there's information that's really helpful to the districts themselves about school climate, how safe students feel in school, and those sorts of things. There's also some community information in here. There's information on where youth are getting alcohol, tobacco, and marijuana. Very helpful information for law enforcement so that they can adequately address this issue. And there's several questions on here for parents about how often parents have talked to their students in the past year about not using alcohol, not using marijuana, how many times do you eat dinner together in an average week, those sorts of information to really improve and strengthen parent-child relationships. So we use this information in a variety of communities, a variety of levels, depending on readiness of the community. Here locally, we're going to be looking at it more in depth at a community level with the Healthy Youth, Healthy Communities Coalition, HCHY, I always get that wrong. So the library, the school districts, the park district, the village, they're all, the township, they're all involved with that. So we're going to be using this information for strategic planning and looking at interventions moving forward. Overall, we were ecstatic when we saw this report. Your data is all going in the right direction. We didn't have a lot of context when we first took it in 2014, so now we have 2 years to look, and all the trends are going in the right direction. The only area of concern is around mental health. There were some sharp increases in the seniors that reported that they had been sad or hopeless to the point that they changed their activities in the last 2 weeks, and about suicidal ideation. So that's information that's been shared with all the school social workers, principals. We had an SAP meeting a couple weeks ago. It's something that the township is aware of as they provide counseling services to youth and family service, so it's on their radar. They've seen increase in services as well, not just with high schoolers, but they've even told me that they're seeing 5- and 6-year-olds coming in with anxiety issues. So they're seeing a variety of mental health issues from all ages across our area. So they're very concerned, trying to figure out how they can stay on top of it, educate parents what the signs and symptoms are to look at, and not just to put this burden on the schools. This really is a community issue that we need to tackle. But our state is a big problem. They have long waiting lists. If the students tend to have the state health insurance, it's a very long waiting list to get. They can get counseling services at the township, but not medication management. So they're running into a brick wall with, they can only do so much, especially when there are issues with anxiety or ADHD, which are two of the most common that they see come through their door. So I work real closely with Adam Krieger, and we're trying to problem solve and come up with solutions. It's not just a Gurnee issue, this is a countywide issue. We have a committee that's looking into telepsychiatry and other issues like that to really coordinate services on a countywide issue. But it is hitting our youth across, not just in Gurnee, but across the districts as well. So it's something we're very concerned about, especially when you get into suicide ideation.
What do you want to say, Sue? What month did we miss for this? Back in...
It was in the spring.
It was March or April, yeah. It's March or April.
So just so people wondered when that was, when Liz made the comment about, when that was, that it was given, it was March or April time. So.
Yeah.
Typically, that survey is given to sophomores and seniors, but this past year was given to every kid in high school.
Yeah. We were looking for opportunities where the health department could provide additional services to your school district, but your numbers went in the fantastic direction, so we had to go to a school that had more need. So, but we are on the radar offering what we can, but with the grants that we have right now, for at least for prevention services, we have to go to the communities that have the higher substance use for our types of services. But I'm working closely with the coalition to make sure that they're making data-driven decisions so that we can continue to be supportive in that way and offer what other resources we can.
We also just, if you remember last year and through our strategic planning process, the piece in there about the Healthy Devils, which is our name of our youth group, that we're trying to, obviously the value of that group in the strategic planning, this is their first year of being active, and we hope they continue to have impact, but in some of those areas that we think this needs to be kind of a kid message, if you will, right, similar to Red Ribbon Week and things that have traditionally been in schools, just to try to go after some things that, maybe on the minds of our kids, and so that's another reason why Healthy Devils is kind of brought into the school, try to help some student assistance programming efforts. So we have our next student assistance program meeting.
Not scheduled but targeted
For January. The goal is over time to try to have those probably quarterly. Figure out, the next question we're probably going to have is how and when we communicate what parts of this to families, to kids, so people know what we're thinking about. A few other things that we talked about in our meeting were prescription drug accessibility and trying to find ways to get prescription drugs out of medicine cabinets and correctly disposed of through different ways. So those are things that generally speaking.
While it's not a rampant problem, there are students that feel that to get through final exams or to get through tests that they need to take an ADHD type drug. So there is, it's in the low amounts of students that are doing that, but it is something that needs to be addressed both with the students who legitimately need those medications so that they know how to say no when they're approached by their peers, as well as the rest of the student body, that they understand that you don't need that and that's not a good habit to get into. It's definitely a problem that is growing on the college campuses, and we're starting to see it in high schools all across the county and the state. So the prescription drugs, while heroin and opioids is a major problem in our region, we're not seeing that use at the high school level. So with that, we're really fortunate. The numbers are in the single digits, 0 to 1% across all the schools in the county. So that really isn't an issue that we're seeing at the high school level. It's more once they leave high school that they're either self-medicating or they're getting into the wrong crowds and that sort of thing. So we are fortunate that something that our state's attorney is addressing, and we have the Lake County Opioid Initiative, and it's being addressed. But that's a tougher age group to hit. It tends to be 18 to 34, so it's not a captive group anymore, so it's a difficult problem to get a hold of.
Internally on our team, Pat and Greg and all of our our social workers and psychologists are Healthy Devil sponsors. And externally, we partner with the Lake County Health Department as well as Warren Township. And so it's really been a good mix of conversation, and we're excited to get some more things going for the well-being of our kids. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Liz, I have a quick question though. Is that, those numbers, are we seeing those numbers with suicide nationally as well as just in our region? Isn't
I
that
haven't looked at the national data yet. We've just looked at our county report, and then we used the suburban because that is a cross-section of all the 9 collar counties. So that's a little bit more close to home than comparing us to the state. So I haven't looked at the national. That's what I've heard in the papers, but I haven't looked at the survey.
That's really disturbing.
Yeah.
Barb, just to address the mental health piece, we have partnered with Alyssa's Mission. We depression screen all our freshmen through their health classes, and we've been able to do some very proactive things with kids that have ideation, and you know, we've seen some hospitalizations this year for kids who weren't on anybody's radar because of the depression screen. So we are trying to be proactive and trying to reach those kids, and with the help of our social workers, you know, help kids work through some of that.
That's great.
Greg, can I ask about Alyssa's Mission? That's something I haven't heard of.
It's,
I don't think there's one. There are a couple others I've heard of.
yeah, there are, and we've been working with them now for 2 or 3 years.
Where are they at?
It's, I'm not sure where they're at, but they're an Illinois group. You know? New Trier,
Somewhere
maybe?
in the North Shore.
Yeah, it's somewhere in the North Shore here, but they're local, and they do a very nice job, and I know that I've worked with them in other high schools that I've been at, and they have a nice tool that we can work with through our freshmen, and that's in conjunction in their health classes when we do our mental health units to make our kids aware.
Okay, thanks.
Tina, we had transportation on for last month, and we postponed.
Yes,
So
thank you.
Tina's gonna give us the transportation annual report tonight.
Good evening. First, I'd like to say thank you for having me tonight and allowing me to share some transportation facts as we celebrate our 100 years of excellent education. I want to tell you a quick story before I start with my presentation. As I began my research, I quickly realized that I had a wealth of knowledge right there within my department. I don't know if you guys are aware, but we do have a very long time driver within the district. She's been driving for the district 38 years. She retired at the end of 14-15, however, she just can't give up the yellow. So she's still subbing for us today. So I thought to myself, I'm going to talk to her. So as I met with her, trying to figure out where transportation began, she has 5 generations of family that have gone through the Warren School District, okay? So back in 1944 and through 48, she had aunts and uncles that went through the school system here, and they did not receive transportation services at that time. Do you want to know how they got to school? They hitchhiked, as they said. I don't know if that's such a good idea today. And they also drove their farm tractors.
The tractors.
Their tractors. This is what her aunts and uncles have told her. So in 1955, her stepmother graduated from Warren, and at that time, they did receive transportation services, but of course, at that time, it was very small, and the buses were actually housed at the Demke Garage, if anybody knows of that, off of Old Grand. So that's where they began the transportation and housing the buses. She said she does remember that the routes were probably at least an hour and a half long. You have to remember it was solid farm country at that time. So as I begin my presentation, my first slide is a 1950 bus, because that's when we determined we started transportation services, was in the early 1950s for the district. Okay? And during my slide presentation, I do have some slides that would require some participation, if you wouldn't mind. Okay? Well, you'll see. It'll be okay. So the first buses were actually built in the mid-20s. Okay? The district began transportation services in the early 50s, as I already stated. So, in reality, we have provided safe transportation for over 65 years. That's awesome. And also, did you know at this time, currently, we are the largest in-house high school transportation in Lake County. High school transportation. Here's our first question. Do you know how many square miles the district is? Can anybody guess?
22.
22?
76.
76?
Mike.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, good guess. 54. 54 square miles, that's awesome. Oh, she's probably got knowledge. Okay, moving along. Currently our fleet size, we have 77 vehicles in its fleet today. Regular ed, we have 42 full-size buses. Special education, we have 19 mid-size buses, 12 vans, and then additional vehicles, we have 4 activity buses, which we just received our additional 2 in September. So in our regular education, Almond Plain, we have 56 routes. Now keep in mind that's 56 in the morning, 56 in the afternoon. So Almond, we have 19 buses that service it, Eau Plain 37, and out of the 37, there are 14 routes that we actually tier with District 56, okay? They're combination routes, shared routes. And we currently have vocational, we have 7 runs daily. Daily shuttles, we have 5 runs, that means we shuttle back and forth from our campuses. And then late run, we have 6 routes Monday through Thursday. And then the evening and weekend athletic and curriculum charters on an average 988. We've been higher, but that's where we're at right now. The students that are right now in Versatrans that we have to provide services for are 4,059. However, our ridership right now for Almond is 776, and at Eau Plain, 1,470. And when I did my averages, I found it kind of ironic that our average per bus for Almond, with the number of vehicles, and Eau Plain came out the same, 41 on an average per vehicle. Okay? Question number 2. How many miles do the full-size buses travel per year? 501,252, 338,492, 585,630, 487,308.
487.
Okay, anybody else got a guess? Okay, and the answer is...
Survey says.
You got it! That's our regular size, that's our full-size fleet, that's what we travel in a year. Okay, let's talk about special education. In district, we have 27 routes. That means 27 routes that travel within our school boundaries. Out of district, 11. 2 of them are shared with the co-op that we have. Transition work runs, we have 11. Our split schedule runs are 7. We have 7 of those. And we actually have 1 vocational run for a special education student to the Tech campus. Late run for special ed, we have 1, and that's at Sidlash. And then for our athletic and curriculum charters for special ed, we have 281. So we have over 1,200 in a year, okay? And then students that we service right now are 175, and the total miles we drive for special ed, 545,102. Okay, more questions? Okay, here we go. Now, the first question, it says, how many gallons of fuel, now keep in mind that's diesel fuel, that's for the full-size buses, is used on an average per year? 76,000, 74, 62,530, 74,000, 76, or 53,023. What do you think? 62, anybody else?
53.
Okay. 76. Okay. We're averaging right now for diesel fuel $1.50 a gallon. Okay. Okay, how many gallons of gasoline? Now these are going to be for our special ed buses and our vans. How many gallons a year do you think on an average we use? 56,121, 64,262, 68,942, or 58,656?
This is special ed, right?
Mm-hmm.
And vans.
Yeah.
Combination of both, the mid-sized buses and the vans.
Sounds like a bad.
68 so far.
68?
64.
64.
Oh,
Right,
my
yay,
God.
pulled them off in the end there.
Got one.
Okay. Okay, so the faculty and staff within transportation, in 2015, we built a new transportation facility, which is awesome. It's approximately 4,200 square feet, and as most of you may know, District 121 and 56 operate from this facility, providing shared service to our surrounding communities. So we both are housed out of this facility and share services. For Warren, we have a support staff of 5. We have regular education drivers, we have 33. Now if you go back to the routes where it said 14, 8 of those 14 are our employees, the other 6 are theirs, District 56. That's how that works. Special education, the buses, we have 18 drivers. Special education vans, we have 11, which 2 are shared. And then our bus aides, we have 4. All right. This is these are some photos of the facility. It's very nice.
It is.
It is very nice. This is just a row of the buses, and this will be down the middle of the buses, and that's just one row. We have 2 of those. Okay. And Ms. Rogers.
I'm going to just step in
Yes.
and talk. We've just got 2 slides that we've done some comparisons of Lake County high schools. Warren is here in, this is Warren.
Mm-hmm.
The top one?
Yes.
Yes, well, right here,
Yeah.
here's Warren.
Oh.
So you can see out of the high schools, the Lake County high schools, we by far transport more miles than any other high school in Lake County. So, for example, Highland Park Deerfield's down here, Grant down here, but because of the size of our district and the number of students that we transport, we're transporting over a million miles a year, which is to me just astronomical and amazing and everything else. Also what we did is we did a comparison, and we're going to post this PowerPoint in the library for you, but Warren is,
Second from the bottom.
second one from the bottom. So what this represents is our cost per student. So the cost for us to transport a student is one of the lowest of the Lake County high schools. And you'll see a little line there, and that represents the reimbursement that we get from the state for that cost. So we're transporting a student at about $3.30 per student. So very cost efficient operation, and as we look forward, we would look to do whatever we can to increase that reimbursement, and of course, decrease that cost. So I just wanted to take all the great information that Tina provided and just put some financial dollars on it for you, just to kind of give you a sense of where we fall. You know, I want to thank Tina too for the outstanding job she did. I want to thank Dolly, who's our newest employee, for helping to put this PowerPoint together. And you know, when I got stuck out on Old Plain Road a week or so ago, and I got to see every driver pull out onto Old Plain Road. We had drivers of every different size, nationality. It's just phenomenal if you ever get a chance to see Tina's crew line those big buses up, and for those two.
And here's a photo I put in here because I just wanted to share. This is the Oak Plain lineup, and this is not even all of it.
I know.
I mean, it is so large, and it's absolutely amazing to watch it. I mean, after my 21st year, when I stand out there, I still get goosebumps and get moved by that. And it is, if you ever get the opportunity to watch that, it amazes me how we can move 1,400 to 2,000 kids out of that building in 7 to 10 minutes. It's
Those
amazing.
buses are lined up from the south end of Old Plain all the way to the end of the parking lot on McClure. So, and those buses are about 2-3 feet apart. So it is phenomenal to watch, and thanks Tina for.
You're very welcome. And I saved the best for last.
Okay.
Do you have questions? That was our view one morning over there. You can't beat it. Over at the transportation facility. I love that picture. So, it's on Swanson Court, 3801 Swanson Court, which would be Northwestern, and Swanson Court, where the water tower is there off of Northwestern.
Vehicle testing station is over
Yes,
there.
emissions.
Emissions testing place.
Yes. Northwestern and Sunset, just up. Can't miss the water tower, we're right there underneath it, as you can see. So I hope it doesn't go one day. Any questions for me?
Thank you, Tina. Thanks, Tina.
Okay, thank you.
Carol,
Yeah.
you said you're gonna put those two monetary slides, let's
Well, we're
go.
gonna put the whole presentation up.
Right, but the monetary ones, could you put on the website?
Sure.
I think people need to see that.
Yeah.
And explain that line down the middle is what we get reimbursed.
Sure.
I think that would be helpful for the
It's
public.
the one, it wasn't the line down the middle, it's the line on the
That's
back.
the average
Absolutely.
cost.
The line way in the back of our blue line. We get about
Yeah.
this much of the blue line.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's
You're not
what
talking
I want.
about the middle line.
No, I'm talking about that little line
Okay.
way over near the
Right.
Yeah,
left side.
we can get that
Cool.
up there.
Thank you.
Willie, Tim and Heather, Willie Christmas show. Willie can introduce Tim and Heather?
I got it.
You should.
We have the pleasure of having Tim Peterson and Heather
There.
Connor. They are our English leads. Tim is at the Oak Plain campus and Heather is at the Almond campus. And I appreciate all the work they do as they lead one of the largest departments in our school. So I'm very thankful for all their leadership. So take it away.
So come and present, right, they say, and we're super excited when we get that call. So that was when you walk in and I look at the program and we're behind transportation, I'm like, yes, right, that's good, it's nice and dry, and she kills it. She's got an anecdote to start, Carol's up here with a closer, and then there's a rainbow. I don't know, and then all I did was do a thing on Google Slides. Don't have any history, there's no questions, unless Heather's good to make them up. We got our slogan here, we just came up with this, I don't know, popped into my brain somewhere from the past, I think. I don't know if we want to go into that one though. But we talk about as we get started here, you know, we form and we take some pride in this and that. Obviously English from 7th and 8th and all those early grades, they do a lot of work. But as the high school kids get going, and we get to the ACTs and the SATs, right? A lot of that is predicated on English skills. You can't do your science unless you can read, and your math is, you know, to some degree based on that. as well in social studies. So, you know, while the whole school shares the burden for getting the students ready for those big tests and obviously life skills, you know, we take some special pride in trying to really push those things that we know testing wise, and some of this life stuff is going to help them get going there. And so, general overview of where we try to go here. We come in and we know our freshmen come from many, many different places. So we have to figure out where they're all at in those first couple months and try to get them pointed all in the same direction and give them a baseline of skills, or pull those skills together and establish what we want, you know, them to be like as an English student, and build on that. You know, as they get into sophomore years, you know, we have some expectations that they have a set of skills and they can write some paragraphs and some sentences and some essays, and now we build on those and try to, you know, consistency. Remember what you've done in the past, and so now we can move on to bigger, better, harder, more complex texts. That's hard to say, text complexity, and you know, depth of reading and things. And then obviously as they get into junior year,
we are doing a lot more developing of style and mastery. So we are able to reach back frequently and build off of what they've done their freshman and their sophomore years. And then and obviously junior year as well, we do a strong focus on the ACT. We're working on the SAT as well. And then senior year, we do a lot more of exploring of genres where students have some choice in the courses that they can take. So, and then of course, college and career.
we always have our eye toward, more so even than the testing is, we're thinking more lately about, you know, are we getting these students ready for post-school work? Not all of them are going to go to college. We want them to be prepared as well as those kids that are going to college. And so to that end, we've started looking at some of our exams and some of the other things we do to try to make them perhaps more practical and applicable to life skills than just saying everybody needs to analyze a piece of work and write about it. Well, what else can we do to vary that skill up to make it more applicable to what people are going to see in their life? And to that end, we've been meeting with CLC a little bit. They're going to come in second semester. We just had some reps going to see what they expect for college readiness. Because those students are a wide range of, you know, students that were honors and AP kids but couldn't get to college at that point for whatever reason, you know, and kids that had less success that are coming back to college. So we're trying to find out, you know, what does a CLC kid, for example, need to be college ready, and I'm very pleased to report that they put out a list here, and we're going after all of those skills. I didn't have time to get that in here, but you know, they talked about writing thesis statements and researching and organization and some different types of writing. We are attempting to get students to meet all those goals even before we knew that CLC came up. So obviously we're a Common Core school, right? And if I had the ability here to click on this, you'd see a wonderful chart, the prose of which, right, we haven't seen since Twain. You know, the literary gems like buried in Poe-esque writing here. But we've started to list or relist all our skills from the Common Core and find out where we're meeting them, and really just start to differentiate a little bit where we can build on things. And as I said, we're trying to have a practical and a college focus to hopefully get these students out of here with, you know, the skills to be ready for college. But if that's not the thing that they're going to do, the skills to, you know, be able to get through life and communicate and look at, you know, write appropriate emails, know your audience, and converse and communicate well.
I'd be happy to, yes. So for our SAT focus, again, the skills are differentiated. We build focus for 3 years. We have a stronger focus our junior year. I'm one of the junior teachers, and in fact, a lot of our grammar assessments are built off of what look like the passages from ACT and SAT. And then we do a lot of our writing from journaling all the way through our summative assessments to mirror some of the types of prompts that the students are going to be seeing on the SAT as well as the ACT.
The main organizational tool, citation tool that we use is MLA, Modern Language Association. And again, talking with CLC or any type of higher institution, you need to credit your sources where you get your information. And so that's a big focus. And the MLA is the way we use that. That's something that these students can carry forth into college. You see it in some publications as well. There are other styles of what we have found that MLA is pretty prevalent, especially Midwestern, as you get out to the East Coast, they're special. We find that it helps them to organize their sources in a relatively simple way. The information is all over the internet. It's super easy to find, so we can give them the skill of using Google searches and finding information and putting that into context as well. And we also have this, that it's something that all the curriculums, social studies and sciences, but social studies especially, where we share a lot of writing skills, uses that as well. So it's applicable to not only our analysis type of writing, but it's applicable to the research writing that we ask the students to do. And it's something that they can build from freshman year to junior year especially. They recently updated as well, which is throwing us all into a tizzy. Come on over so we can all sit down. To get into a little bit more of the nuts and bolts of what we're doing on a day-to-day basis, we do look at fiction and nonfiction. The nonfiction piece has become in the last 5 years much more important as that has become a Common Core SAT focus. But we do still hit plenty of our classical, and we're trying to build some modern authors in there, see some more diversity, some more women, some more people of color. And we do have plenty of choice. You can see this is a very pretty small list actually of what we do offer. But they read a couple of Shakespeare books, and depending on the level at which the student is at, they'll read some of these other authors. And then we have plenty of supplemental shorter pieces, whether it be poetry or short stories or things like that. And then the nonfiction, we often use them to get at those SAT-driven skills and practices.
Alrighty. Lots of styles. Again, we focus on Common Core. So that's narrative, analysis, argument, research, and then a lot of what we've started, especially right here, at the junior levels, more project-based learning. And of course, the literary analysis is one of our major focuses as well. For most levels, we have, do you guys have two process-driven essays? We focus on, process-driven is important for us because it gives us the hands-on work with the kids. It takes us a long time to write them, but we move through every single piece of the writing process with the kids. So by the time they're finished, they've had a lot of conferences with us, conferencing with each other, and it's also nice because kids get to be in different parts of the process at different times. So that also kind of allows us to float due dates and be flexible with our instruction and just moving the kids through the process. So that does include obviously drafting, editing, more drafting, and then finalizing. And then the skills developed over 4 years, we do have a focus on academic, professional language, and practical applications. And actually, one of the things that we're working on, one of our focuses this year has been cross-curricular talk about thesis statements. So how does a history teacher talk about argument versus, and thesis statements versus an English teacher versus even a science teacher. So that is something that we're trying to get that language to kind of shore up a little bit.
And speaking again to the practical applications of this, as phones and texting and all that becomes more prevalent, one of the things we start to see students want to put that into their writing, the abbreviations and things. And so what we have to emphasize here is that that's fine, but not you're in school. This is an academic. You have to know your audience, and you have to change how you would write an email to me versus how you would write one to your mom versus how you would write one to your friend. If you're trying to tell us the same thing, it's always going to be phrased differently. You can use emojis with your friend, but don't start your email to me with hey. Right? I don't care if you just started with Mr. P or if you started with Dear, but there is an appropriate way to begin depending upon your audience. So understand, where you are and with who you're communicating. And again, if you're going to college, it's one thing, but even if you're just dealing with a boss, that's going to be another thing when you're just having a conversation. That's important, so we try to emphasize that.
I just want to say I'm real grateful to hear that because it's real scary as far as what the world is going to be like 20 years from now. Just from what I see from some of the young people in the working world today, that schools were not focusing on that.
Yeah,
some of the emails I get is like, are you kidding me?
That's how all those moments today.
These are people that are actually working with their younger generation, so the schools definitely need to focus on this.
Yeah. I was working with a student today who who's a very good student, but now I was reading over her draft and none of her proper nouns were capitalized, not a single one. And I was like, why is that just automatic? You know, like, 'cause as a typewriter, as I learned, you know, in the 90s, so you took the class, you know, A, B, B, you know, but they don't do that anymore, and the texting is just, it's automatic for them. And she's like, it automatically does it for you on texting. I'm like, but it doesn't on Google Docs. Like, you have to, and they forget, you know, and you know, we always talk about going back and revising and making sure that all of those things are done, but they can never do it, you know.
And that's where we, you know, again, where these things, you know, all these different types of writing and this stuff should work together, right? Where the goal isn't for me to look through your paper and circle and correct everything. The goal is for you and your peers to realize you didn't capitalize this guy's name every single time. Right? You have to catch that. It's simply a skill you have to have as a sophomore, especially as a junior. Right? That's a thing that you know since you started writing your name. Right? So, man, some of those simple things that we can really emphasize in this sort of process of writing, you know, that helps us get through that. And so at Oak Plain, the students have very little choice in English. They have no choice in what English they take. They take English 1 and English 2. Right? State mandated, right? And then English 3 is pretty much across the board. There is honors, there is AP, and then there is some remedial or, you know, special ed type stuff. But then when you get to be a senior, you have some choices. And so this year, last year, the Almond people spent a lot of time working on this and have changed, updated.
Yes, and to say a lot of time would be an understatement. So since last spring, we have been working very collaboratively amongst ourselves and administration to reduce the number of senior electives that we are currently offering. We are currently offering 13 different senior electives. We are now offering 6. And the reason, there were 3 big reasons. We wanted it to create more of a common experience amongst all of our electives, with a focus on literary analysis and a modified AP literature curriculum. So we will be taking an even closer look at what the AP literature curriculum is doing at the senior level, and then of course modifying down for our senior electives. And then we also, of course, want to support our PLT model. With 13 different electives, we have a lot of teachers just teaching one course all by themselves. And since we believe in collaboration, and it does in fact make us stronger teachers, we want to support that model by reducing the number of classes. We are currently collecting, students are currently enrolling in the classes like today, tomorrow, throughout the rest of the week. So we're hoping to see some balanced numbers in the electives that we're offering, and that would allow us then to have teams of a minimum of 2, we're hoping for 3. And then of course, with less courses and aligned to the AP Lit curriculum, it supports our goal of vertically aligning our curriculum across those senior elective courses, but then of course down into our junior courses as well, and then of course all the way down to freshmen. So our senior courses that will be offered both semesters will be advanced composition, myths and legends, science fiction, creative writing, literature and film, and modern world literature. Courses that we took out but will still be offered as electives. They will not count as English credits. Will be grammar. We're hoping to attract some juniors there and kind of use that course as an ACT and SAT prep. The communications course will also be offered as an elective, but not an English credit elective. And then journalism will also be offered, but not for English credit. So those courses on the left-hand side, those 6 are our 6 that we are going to be offering next year, hopefully.
And so I guess if we could end with a verbal rainbow, we don't have those pictures. You know, we can't always get the kids to walk out of our class loving reading. We rarely can get that to happen, right? We hope to, but it doesn't happen all that often. But we have a very dedicated, excited group that comes in every day, you know, wanting these students to leave better writers, better readers, and hopefully better thinkers and communicators. You know, because as you said, the world's changing very quickly, and you know they need to know and read and analyze things that are coming at them, just so they know what's happening in their world. And you know, ultimately, if we can get them to college, or if we can get them out of school, with good ability to communicate, think for themselves, and know what's happening around them, we've done a good job. Questions, comments, concerns?
for any of the three courses here considered English core classes are for NCAA purposes? And since you are not offering those?
The one course that we did have some problems with was grammar. We were seeing some issues out west, I believe, the California schools. Not a ton, but some. Currently, communications and journalism were fine. Is that correct? Communications now we're having some problems with NCAA now, but since it's an elective now, that won't be a problem, because they only look at the core classes.
The NCAA just this year said communications would no longer count for them as NCAA, but if they took it this year, they're okay.
Yeah.
But moving forward, right, and the same thing with journalism, they're having some issues with journalism, so that's why we're like, okay, this is a clean cut. The ones on the left, all of them are NCAA except for
Literature and film.
literature and film. So
Yeah,
they,
it's time for them to call that out. too.
We do, yes, we absolutely do, and the counselors are.
Yep, we've done that. And we just found out, we tried to appeal our case to the NCAA, and they are getting very, very, very strict with their courses. And they said no to literature and film. They don't really give us a reason, they kind of say yes or no. So, but they still have enough choices.
Any other questions?
Very good, thank you very much.
So we, Pat, Greg, you guys want to step up to this? I just want to make sure we.
Sorry, Chad.
Thursday, we were putting the board meeting together for tonight. And last Wednesday night, we actually I realized, maybe we all realized that we were taking some things for granted, that we went through the strategic planning, that maybe we ought to go back and revisit a little bit. What I mean by that is when we did our strategic planning process a year ago, and even up to a month ago, right, we had, in terms of our belief statements, right, we believe that the student growth and achievement, which is what we're trying to do, are maximized when we unleash the power of our inclusive and diverse culture. We have that as an overall strength, and it is a warning, right, it is, no question about it. So much so that probably when we were going through our strategic planning, right, it was one of those things, at least on my end, maybe we said, we're good there. Right, we need to work in a couple of other areas, and we're good. And then last week, right, all of a sudden now we're forced in a situation where we realize, well, it's not perfect, right? We've got things going on that are kind of challenging who we are and what we're about, and how we react to this is extremely important. And we obviously had the inappropriate and insensitive racial, and we tried to communicate this out to everybody. The graffiti that was in the inappropriate and insensitive racial graffiti that was in the bathroom here and then over at Oak Plain the day after. And in addition to that, we were trying to deal with a really new thing, at least for me here, and that was dealing with, wait a second, all of a sudden we're talking about not all feeling good about being one, and now there's things that people are scared of, and rightfully so, and we've got to step in and try to manage this the best we can and deal with all kinds of different aspects of this and perspectives of this and care about our kids and try to get through this. And then once we said, well, let's just do this. First, we're going to go to the board Tuesday night. We're going to start some things immediately because people say, well, what are we doing? Well, we're looking for people who do these things, right? And then those investigations are still open, and we still try to find people who do things, right, that put a division in this. But besides that, the other question is, okay, that's one piece of it. Let's make sure that we start to talk more about how we treat each other in a unified way here at Warren, and not just assume that it'll get done just because it's been good in the past. So the reason I wanted, Pat and Greg was because immediately we started thinking about, okay, where are we going with this? And we heard a lot of kids out on Thursday and Friday, and we got different perspectives on what people were thinking was going on. And on our end, our perspective was simply this, that if there were kids upset on Thursday and Friday, we wanted to make sure that we took the opportunity to hear them, try to get a sense for what they were feeling, and realizing it was a really emotional time, and not all of a sudden kind of too quickly and just kind of play things through for a little bit till emotions came down a little bit. Right? So that was part of what we were feeling. At the same time, we immediately knew, wait a second, we've got to start to talk about what actions do we have to put into our strategic plan that will start to have us revisit this process. So the nice thing was that Thursday and Friday, both Pat and Greg found some students, the initial group, there's more that will join. Some students who said, no, I'm willing to help with this. I realized that we've got to start doing some more things. We've got to start talking about this. We've got to start to get some committees together again to talk about how we should treat each other as a community. And what are the things that we, in terms of a gap analysis, what are the things we should be doing as a school that's really proud of our diverse culture? That for us to maximize that, what are the things that we should be doing that maybe we're not right now, or we've kind of let slip away? What are the conversations that we were having 10 years ago that we're not having now? What are some other things that other schools are doing to really make sure that we keep this on the forefront of our minds and, you know, regularly revisit with our kids how special it is that they come to school in a really diverse culture and have the opportunity to learn from people from all kinds of different backgrounds. That's a special opportunity that our kids get. But we have to make sure also that we do it explicitly and that kids know that, right? So we don't take it for granted. And so Pat also and Greg, there's parents that have come out and we told parents over the last couple of days or so, we're going to start by talking to the board. And I said, what's our first step? Well, on my end, my first step is to come to the school board and say, I'm trying to get some direction because our strategic plan, right, was a month ago. And if we had been starting to do it now, this week, I'm sure that we would have started with some things about, oh, well, we probably need to put some work here right now into making sure that we appreciate the diversity and support our culture, both of our buildings, making sure there's some things in place. So,
Can you first tell me your name?
yeah, I'm John Alderman, superintendent. And you know, Mr. Keeley and Mr. Meyer, principal at Alderman in Oak Lake. So, no, that's all right. I appreciate that too, because it was the first, for me, right, I don't interact with parents that often. And it was, I talked to a lot of parents over the last, 5 or 6 days, and those conversations have all been good. And I know that Pat and Greg, we've tried to take as much time as we can to talk at length with parents, right? Because it's how we really understand each other and try to get to know one another and try to set some strategies in place. So initially, what we want to do is come to the board and say, we're probably going to try to put something into maybe in our strategic plan that we think might fit, just to hold ourselves accountable. The purpose of our strategic plan on our end is hold ourselves accountable to the work that we're trying to get done for the school district. That's what it is. So and in our plan, we didn't have any of those things. So we're probably going to try to talk about what that might look like, right? Specifically under maybe the student life perspective. There's probably some language there that we can come up with by the December board meeting that will at least give us a start on this, right? And then hold ourselves accountable to, okay, the next couple months in meeting with kids and parents, what are the planning stages that we might need and what are the things that we need to get into play. It's really quick for us, right? Because this was just last Wednesday, it was 6 days ago that this all kicked off for us. And so it's been a whirlwind for us, but we didn't want to, when the questions come, what are you going to do about it? Well, we're trying to find the people who did this, right? And we wanted to bring it tonight. And so I appreciate the board's allowance to have me talk about this tonight and put it on the agenda. And I already know that these guys have talked to parents and kids, and we're trying to get committees together to start to talk about where we need to go for, and staff. Well, obviously that's an easier group for us to connect with, but we naturally do it. But we didn't want to, we just thought the first step would be to come here tonight, talk openly about it, and see if there is anything that board members have questions, or try to keep everybody in the loop as best we can.
Who was here in September of 2007 when, according to the Village of Kearney website, it says September 27, 2007. I don't know who was on the board at that time. This morning, the Kearney Police received information from the Warren Township High School District Administration that a student had engaged in inappropriate behavior on school grounds. The police investigated and revealed that behavior and racially charged statements made by a single student caused a disruption in the school, alarming other students, which I think is the same thing that appears to have happened, although I don't really know. But most of the information has come from the media. So,
You got an email from
WGN,
Dr. Altman as well.
we got, it was passive in an email.
Oh.
And there's a discrepancy, so WGN said it was a sign. The Daily Herald, which Bob Sessenjar just left, they and ABC said a stall. There's a discrepancy as actually what started this all. And what I've heard from parents in the community is the outrage that it's, in their opinion, a hate crime. And if it was scribbled on a stall, it was vandalism. And it appears from reports from students who told their parents there was police in the building beyond the school resource officer. There were parents who reported that they tried to contact the school when their kids were saying that between 6th and 7th period, they couldn't get down the halls. People were walking out of our closed campus, walking off the building. There were students texting and videotaping to their parents that they were upset that people were telling Mr. Keeley to shut the F up. And it appears that there's a different narrative from the press than what parents have on the real-time feed on photos, video, text from their kids. And their concern is what I think all of us in the room is, which is, like, let's find out who the perpetrator is and take appropriate action. Because we have a closed campus, because every life in this building matters. Every student of every color, blue, black, brown, white, every student, every staff member, every contractor, every security guard, bus driver, cafeteria person, all their lives matter. So we have a closed campus to protect that. But according to people in the community and who live in the neighborhood across the street, kids were leaving the campus during the day on Thursday. Then there were kids that told their parents to come get them during the 6th and 7th period because they were upset. And then one parent called me after the 10 o'clock news on Thursday night and said, my kid just walked off. He was so upset when he heard Mr. Keeley being disrespected. He just walked out of the building and walked home. So I feel like what the parents are upset about is it seems like in 2007 we were able to quickly find the perpetrator and address it. And now this time it's almost a week and there just doesn't seem to be an understanding of what really occurred. So the community members, can I just finish? Because I've heard from a lot of community members.
I have to. So.
And their position is, right or wrong, that the one incident of a hate crime in Almond is one, but the copycats are 3 incidents of what they describe as a hate crime. And they believe that if the Gurnee police were involved and the deans did not follow our board policy 832 about civility and character, our closed campus policy of 732, that the people inside who were violating that policy and putting the lives of everybody in the building at risk, we should be quickly, if it's been almost a week and we haven't discovered who's behind this, it should be turned over to the FBI and Homeland Security and let them figure out and put a stop to this. There's people that are...
Let me just say one thing, a couple things. You've kind of talked about 19 different things, which is fine.
Well, I've heard lots of things and I've seen lots of videos and pictures and a lot of things.
But a couple things about what you said. First off, I think everybody is trying to figure this out, but you realize that this happened in a bathroom, right?
Right.
Right, okay. I get to finish too.
Okay.
Happened in a bathroom, which means there's no cameras. There's no way to see it. There's no way to know, unless somebody talks about it, what happened. And the person that did it, if they have half a brain, which I doubt, but if they did, they're not talking about it. If they are talking about it, then we'll find out who did it. But there's no way to find out by going to a camera. We can talk to kids, and everybody's been talking to the students and everybody. You can talk to them, but things that happen inside the bathroom are hard. There's no cameras, you can't see. So if the kids don't talk about it, then you don't find out. They just, so if it's one student or two students, and they're keeping it back, you don't find out. You just don't find out. Now, you went back to 2007, I was here in 2007. And the people that got in trouble in 2007 were driving around with Confederate flags
And nooses.
and nooses. And so that was very obvious. I mean, to find that, all you had to do was stand on the street and watch them drive by. So, and that was dealt with very quickly because it was obvious. You could see who was doing it. So I think your comments that, you know, we should go find this person and do something, we are trying to do something, but you can't just take kids in and grill them over the coals and, you know, put the bright light on them and say, did you do this? There's 4,000 kids here. We don't know which one did it at this point.
Excuse me.
I would assume that if someone was talking about it, we would know this.
John?
Yes, ma'am.
I don't know if my speaker's on. I can't see.
We can hear
who
you.
he is. But in the newspaper, one of the newspaper articles reported that one of our students reported to the deans, who reported to a dean who the student was, and apparently it still has not become
One of the
known.
news articles said that.
That doesn't, of course, you know, I believe everything I read in the paper and on the
It
internet.
was a student who said that to a reporter.
That doesn't mean it's true. You don't think if the dean knew they wouldn't say something? That's ludicrous.
I'm concerned that she told the dean and it hasn't come forward.
I don't think
I think
that.
that we could have,
Okay, time out.
Can I just speak as a parent?
Sure.
Just real quick.
Sure.
Because first of all, we all have to remain calm. We
I'm
have to
calm.
remain lovable, and our kids are gonna watch how we can.
Agreed.
Number one, if there was a student that said something to a dean, that person's name is in there, let's keep this simple, let's start there, let's address that. Of course, there's gonna have loopholes in here, but as an African-American parent, raising an African-American student in this community, you know, we've had to raise our son with things that you guys don't have to deal with. We've had to teach him that racism does exist. We've also had to teach him that he lives in a diverse community, and we don't want him to choose his friends based on racism. We want him to choose his friends based on love and based on diversity. And he's done a great job of that. But he's came home since this and shared things with me that he didn't say was going on at the school. So I'm saying that we have to come together, be it the superintendent, be it the parents, be it each one of you guys. We cannot step in here and overdo this and let Homeland Security and everybody else step in here. We got to first come together as the Warren community family and figure this out.
I agree.
We're not going to all agree, we're not going to have all the same thoughts, but at the end of the day, we got to first start communicating with ourselves to come up with a plan of action. How do we communicate this to our children? How do we let our children first know that it's not acceptable? When you talk about that copycat stuff, I knew that there was going to supposed to be a sit-in. We didn't get ahead of that, you know, in terms of noticing that that was going to happen. Kids did not have to be arrested. We felt in our job to say that if this happened at Army, what are we going to do now to get over here at Oak Plain before something gets out of hand? Because my son let me know that, you know, he was willing to do the sit-in there because he was real clear about what he was upset about. But he said then there were kids who did not mean well, who were talking about throwing chairs and being rowdy and saying Elf Trump, and he even tried to talk to them. And he said, this is not how you do this. You don't meet ignorance with ignorance. But when he saw they weren't reachable, he stepped back out of it. So I'm saying we got a loophole right there. We got children here, whether it's whoever wrote that on the toilet stall or whoever were the rowdy ones. We got to reach the ones that we can reach before we start tossing them out on the street and expelling them. We got to make it clear what's not tolerable. We got rules are rules, but we can't just start just tossing everybody, bringing in home security. We need to be an example of how do you handle a situation like this. So the other schools can take a look at what we're doing. We're not going to do this all by ourselves either. We got to talk to people in schools and get the resources of people who have dealt with this. This problem didn't start overnight. It's not going to get fixed overnight. So we can't get ahead of everything and then make it worse for ourselves. So I just want to say that I'm here in peace because we're going to fix this. My son is only a freshman. And I'm sorry, my parents and my grandparents had to deal with ignorance of people who thought they were better than other people. So you can't use this bathroom, you can't do this, you can't do this. I had to teach him this history, which is a rich history and a sad history. And I'm not going to sit back and allow him to live in it. And I'm not going to get ignorant either. First of all, I'm a preacher's wife. I don't use profanity. I'm telling you,
I'm glad it occurred, because it made us address and face some issues. You know, we've all sat back and like to think, oh, this is gonna mean it's fine. I was blown out the water when my son told me that he saw a kid call a kid a nigger. And then the kid jumped on the kid. And then the kid, so there's stuff that goes on here that we got to take our blinders off.
I agree.
Can I also speak as a parent? I was at work and my sister sent me a text and said, did you get the email from the school? I said, I did not. I checked my phone and then my daughter, was sending me images. I said, whoa, what's going on here? I guess as a parent, I was a little concerned that, you know, I saw, yeah. I said, okay, where are the other teachers and who has control of this? Because I was seeing things that were completely out of control. I did come to the school the next day and found out about the meeting. I did have a discussion with my daughter. I said, number one, if you miss class, you're going to be in Saturday school. Because, you know, I send you here to school. There are guidelines that you have to follow. As a parent, I have that expectation that you must follow them. But she didn't know. She said, Mom, it was my lunch break. But surprising, she had talked to her other sisters. And this is one thing I didn't know. My daughter, who was a junior here, and she says, Mom, I never told you. There was an incident regarding someone referred to her as the N-word. I said, never. She says, no, because I'm afraid you would get upset. It started out, it was like related to the Baltimore incident, started in an email with a young man, and then he referred to her. There was an incident, she said, in her math class, where this young man would compare black students to white students. Luckily, the teacher squashed that. And it was, my daughter said she went to the dean with a group of other students, and this situation was addressed. But it surprised me. I said, at Warren, I didn't know. I thought it was a kumbaya moment here, but what happened, I said, there's something wrong here. My daughter used the term, and I don't know if it came out, she said, Mom, there's like a racial disrespect here. And she brought up very specific incidents regarding students and skin color, and, you know, and words that were used to refer to students. So for me, it's like, I said, well, maybe I was asleep behind the wheel. But, you know, coming from my daughter, who's now a sophomore at Arizona, when she shared with me, you know, this was going on when I was there, and then my one who is a senior said, no, this is something, I guess, so.
Catherine, can I go back to something you said? So,
Well, can I just follow up on their comments, because I agree with both of you. The comment about the students come here to go to school, which is what board policy 832 says. So I think that, you know, and we have laws that we have to abide by, truancy laws, which are tied to attendance. How are we going to report attendance between the end of fifth hour and the end of the day? And under the new Illinois truancy law, if you're missing school 90 days, the parents and the perpetrators can be incarcerated and fined. I guess what parents said to me was they felt that that was the message that should have been communicated. And it was either, hey, we just found out about this Wednesday, it's now Thursday, give us 24 hours to work on this investigation, close the bathroom, it's a crime scene, and we'll have an assembly Friday morning, and we're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about what's wrong, we're going to talk about this is not our values, this is not what we're about, all lives matter, and this is not acceptable. And most parents that I talked to said that would have been a better way to handle it, so that the conversation is with everybody. And any parent that wanted to come should have been able to come. Now, there were parents who said, how come I didn't get an invite to the meeting that supposedly occurred outside of the library with certain parents? They're like, what parents got the invite? This is just what I heard from parents in the community. But I agree with you. I just think that it's a conversation that we all need to be a part of. And
Agreed. I think that obviously it's a horrible situation and one that we all need to address and come together as a group and say, let's address this with the students, because in essence, that's what we have to do. It's all about the students and getting them together, because we can stand up here and talk about it, you know, forever, and it's not going to mean anything. So we have to get the students together and have them talk about it And, you know, if there's bad eggs and there's things going on that are inappropriate, then we need to deal with those. And I think that's what needs to happen. I think that's hopefully what we're gonna do, and I believe that's what you would do in the future. What I'm a little concerned about, you know, some things that were said here and there, like you said, some parents had a meeting outside Almond, and Pat was there the whole time. He said there was no parent meeting. That doesn't mean parents didn't show up, but there was not a meeting called. I don't believe. And then,
Somebody fed information to the press because it's
Kevin,
being
I
reported in the press.
understand. I'm telling you what actually happened. 'Cause
Yeah,
this
I
man
don't
over
even not
here-
worry about the press. The press is ridiculous. We need
Yeah.
to worry about our
I'll agree with
community
you.
and our
What
conversation.
we want to do is get the children
amongst
together,
us.
have,
We're
get
getting
groups together.
worse sources, the press, my
and
kid
get
is
some-
reliable.
Yeah.
And my kid's not that reliable, so
You know,
I would really like to not worry
The
about
most
that.
important thing here that I think we're losing focus is on our kids, and there's no room for the ignorance
Right.
that took place. And that's what it is, it's ignorance. But we've got to bring the focus back to our kids. And I'll tell you, when I heard everything that's going on, you know, things get blown out of proportion with the press and social media, but that's the world that we live in. And you've got to learn to kind of really read between the lines, and sometimes go to the horse's mouth to get the true information, so enough on that. But I'll tell you, I'm just kind of proud of our kids. When it happened here at Almond, they took a stand, and they said, this isn't right. When I was informed what was going on, it wasn't just African Americans. It was a collective group of Warren students. And I think that is the power that Warren has, because we are a diverse community, and they stood up and they said, we aren't gonna put up with this. We're not gonna deal with that ignorance. And I think they did a good job. And they didn't go breaking windows and they just came together and said, this isn't right. The one lady on the news, very well spoken, just said, this isn't Warren. We need to come together, and we won't tolerate that kind of behavior. Those people need to be somewhere else. And that's ignorance that needs to be someplace else. So I was very proud that they came, and you heard our English teacher talking about them being thinkers. That's being a thinker. That's taking some self-responsibility, bringing it to a self-governing body, because they did. They came together as a group and said, this is enough. At Old Plain, the same thing happened, but it started going the other way.
Okay, well, let me first say this at Old Plain. There is a number of students who we still have to be proud of.
Oh, yes, yes, oh, yes.
Once they got word that this wasn't gonna go south, they were thinkers, and they did.
Oh, yes, oh, absolutely,
That's
absolutely.
where I say we went wrong. That, once that happened at Armin, we should have been prepared, and then on top of that, we should have called those students together. We should have let them know that this took serious, but I'm not here to find fault, I'm here to say, what can we do?
And those are things that I think we all learn as the process.
That's my point, we learned from it.
You know, armchair quarterbacks on Sundays, you know, we're all experts on Mondays.
Absolutely.
But it's a learning experience for all of us. This isn't, and I hope nothing like this, you know, brings its evil head up again. But it probably will. I'm a realistic.
I was concerned about, you know, it's like the safety and security of my daughter, because what I saw had me concerned about safety and security of all the students.
Right,
It's like,
absolutely.
who had control of that situation? So it didn't escalate.
But this is right, we got to.
And that's why I came here the next day to say, you know, okay, all's quiet on the Warren front here. Because it will happen again. And I must say, and I don't know how the elections played in this, but I'm going to, as a parent, my daughter shared something, but I did observe something that for teachers, sometimes I think your political views, when you're in a school setting, need to kind of keep that inside. Because interesting, when I came the next day, a staff member was going on about, wow, how is America going to be great again? I was there, 2 students were there, 1 student was getting flushed. I said, this doesn't help. Right. You need to, I work for the federal government, we have the Hatch Act, we squash that stuff. We don't bring it into the workplace. My daughter shared something, I said, probably not a good thing to do in the classroom. So, maybe that conversation with the staff to say,
Yeah, that was, people brought that up to the principals real quick. And they immediately, that's why every parent talked to me, I said, no, I saw the communication that the principals had out to their staff about it, because they heard really quick, and it was inappropriate. I mean, it was inappropriate, there was, what it was, getting back to the start of the conversation, it was for sure an emotional, whatever, for any reason, I can tell you that the emotional level in the building for those days was higher than it usually is, which is why, when the kids were feeling something, the last thing we want to do with kids that were feeling something, and I'm not talking about the rebel rousers, right? Not the kids that were looking to, that didn't have a good purpose, but the kids that had good meaning, the last thing that we wanted to do is squash them, right? And say, no, we don't have, so we took the risk of trying to support kids who we thought needed to be supported and needed to be heard, and absolutely did some other kids acting, we're disappointed those other kids did, but we're not and most of those kids got on their way relatively quickly too. So there was actually only a small handful here, and another group of a little bit bigger at Oak Plain, but those are, those are students that probably give us trouble on other days as well, right? So that's not anything that necessarily was.
They're also freshmen in Southport, so they don't have maturity at this point, so.
I'm grateful all of this is happening, because it's just gonna make us a better school.
Absolutely.
It opened up the dialogue, and we had to take our blinders off. I had on mine too. My son shared with me some things that blew my mind as far as what he's experienced as a freshman, in terms of racism. But he never even talked about it until this incident occurred. So I think that we're not gonna solve everything here tonight, but we do need to get some committees together of involved parents, involved students, and we gotta do this responsibly. We can be the example of the school that how do you deal with this diversity and still keep the diversity of the excellence of the schools we have, and we can do it.
Agreed.
Mr. Keeley, I think, has names of the parents that, because we've asked parents every time we call, are you interested in helping? They said, yes. So if you guys aren't on Mr. Keeley's list, and that's why you came tonight, please make sure he has your name. We'll keep our list of students growing. We have to do something, relatively soon. The other thing, Catherine, the other thing I wanted to talk about in terms of the other thing, and I tried to communicate this out to people, I hope they understood it. One of the things that was really scary for us, at least for me, was the Wednesday night situation. The thing about graffiti on bathrooms, people might not like to hear this, but this is the truth. There's graffiti on schools and public buildings. There's graffiti, inappropriate thing that's written inside bathroom stalls. I mean, it has been. It's always wrong, right? But normally what happens, because our goal, get it down as quick, take a picture of it so we know it's there, get it down as quick as you can, right? Because you don't want to offend you want to offend as few people as possible, and right? And so that's how we normally operate. The problem with it was this wasn't just a matter of the bathroom stall. Social media, right? All of a sudden there's a picture of things, and now, regardless of anything else in the world, we were even talking about the fact this could have possibly, now it did happen here, but it could have possibly happened somewhere else. Somebody tags it saying it's Warren High School, throws it on the internet, and now we're dealing with a whole other issue of just miscommunication. So I think the piece about making sure that our kids, right, that ultimately, even if something happens, right, we get our kids to know that, well, that's not us, right? Somebody might have made a mistake, and we don't do this here, right? And so we'll figure all that out, but we're not gonna start going after each other because of something out there, right? So it was just a little scary.
What was that? Can you repeat what you just said? We're not gonna, Mike, you just said you want to rid it. If you want to rid it, then you have to discipline the person who did it.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying whether you like to hear this or not, very rarely do people catch the people who put graffiti inside bathroom stalls. That's why they put it there, because it's very hard to catch individuals who write graffiti inside bathroom walls. People might not like to hear that, but that's the truth, because there's no cameras, it's a very loose situation, and because of that, when we find it, the first thing we do is get it down right away. When we see graffiti inside bathroom walls, get it down right away. Right? It's like...
Yeah, and what I'm hearing is that we gotta even teach our kids how to handle that, when they see something like that. We gotta be more responsible. We can't just let the outside media and everybody blow this out of proportion, and if we allow that to happen, they can cause more feelings and more emotions.
Right, but then who gave it to the press?
Yeah, there was a
Then where's your,
picture.
then
No,
where
I
did you
understand
go?
that because of.
How did you get there?
But my
How
point
did you
is trying
tweak
to
it on the
some kids
video?
we're not
I don't
educated
even
on how to
see it.
handle it, and we gotta help them. We
And
gotta
I don't
start.
wanna focus on this one incident.
Right.
Because it's a culture thing. How do we change the culture? Let's talk about moving forward. They're gonna do everything they can do to try to find out who committed these crimes at both campuses. But let's not get stuck on that here today. Let's talk about how we can change the culture, how we can move forward with the parents that you have here and the rest of the board.
Mr. Keel, and I know that, what people probably don't know what happened here the next day. With the stickers?
Yeah, the stickers are
My
great.
daughter should
Monday.
get they say stickers on the wall.
Oh, I didn't see that. Oh, yeah, that
Now,
was.
see, the press doesn't come and get
That
that.
was really
No,
nice.
the positive thing, the press doesn't come and get that.
Right.
And that happened at Oak Plain as well, but just
Yeah.
not on all the lockers that are appearing on our bulletin boards. I have a group of kids that came in, asked if they could post that. They're just benign, positive
Right.
messages
Absolutely right.
that express love and concern for everybody. And I tell you, our kids have responded real well. You know, our kids at Oak Plain are solid.
The Daily Herald's writing that story, that's why Bob was here.
Yeah, what about it? He,
About the story about.
Is it?
I know
Good for Bob.
where
Good for Bob.
Catherine
That's
and
why
the
he's here.
parents got there talking about, John, it was in your email to parents, or no, it was in a newspaper article that you forwarded to the board, the whole article. And in it says the administration will be meeting with parents and students. And so I think that's where the idea came that only certain parents would be in that book is because of, in that article, it said.
And the fact of this, as parents came in, and there were some parents, like, could you follow up? And of course I'll follow up with them. And with that is, there'll be a blast to all parents, inviting all parents to be part of the process. That's exactly what I
That's
told.
what I think, where
the parents.
parents are coming,
There were a
and
few
some
parents that
parents,
came
yeah,
in,
they
and
weren't.
there's no question, and they were very informative, and I wanted to, like, the concerns you're raising tonight, I wanted to tell them to be as transparent as possible. Their most prized possession is here. And I told those parents that asked, well, can we come back again? I'm like, not only can you, again, we want a consistent message to all parents. And I hope that those 4 parents that did come in would reach out to other parents to make sure that they come when we do invite all parents.
A number of parents did ask for like kind of a letter from us after, because, we also told people we're dealing with a high level of emotion right now. Right, and then Friday was normal here. Right, and like we were just waiting, just hold on. Maybe kids will kind of get back a little bit or refocus on school and know that we've got work to do, but not, not the need to express it that time. But it was, so the normalcy will help that end of it. But we were waiting, a number of parents asked for, can you send out a letter just afterwards? Right, because we were just going through it at the time, trying to get that information out, just, was it exact, well, I don't know if it was exact now, we just thought, well, I'd much rather try to communicate something than say nothing, right, and have people get nothing. So, but we will send out a letter afterwards, kind of, maybe in a couple of days, maybe right before Thanksgiving, just to kind of debrief, this is what happened, this is where we're going, we're very proud of our kids, and we got some work to do. We talked to the board. They think it would be great if we put some, at least action
Groups
plans.
together.
And so that's kind of what it was.
Yeah, last thing I'm gonna say is a lot of parents were aware of this board meeting. My son, I was proud of him. He's only a freshman, but he took it upon himself to send out, they use social media and stuff. And he made it clear that this is not a bad session, but let's come where we can have a voice and stuff. And the funny thing, he told me back, he said, Mom, when I was, they just put it out, they were gonna have this sent in at 5th period. You got like a whole lot more hits. When I started inviting them to come to some place like this, the hits were less as far as letting them tell their parents. So this is an eye-opener for him too. And like I said, a lot of things start at home. And I'm gonna say this real, not long, but we gotta be cautious about the media. Because the media is also looking for stories, they're selling newspapers. Okay, in the African American community, I did a lot of work in Inglewood and a lot of other stuff. Most of what you see in the news is there's 10 to 20% of these people who are gonna cause harm or do things anyway. There's a whole 80, 90% of the culture that's doing well that you don't hear about. Great kids doing great things. And I'm just gonna be open. I have a lot of friends of all types of diversity. But it causes them to be afraid of Inglewood, to be afraid of the kids that's coming out there. Because all they see is what's in the media. So we can't allow this to happen in Germany and let the media define who we are. We've got to take some control of what the media is going to be sending and putting out as far as how we're handling this, how we're following up, and what we're doing inside our school. And like you say, we have to teach our kids, first of all, the responsibility of, if you see something like this, we do care. But you don't have to take this picture and send it all out. And I'm with all these other parents. This is bigger than just this incident. We all have to take our blinders off. And we got to address this to make sure that we are this culture in this school that, you know, so we got a problem, but it's not the worst problem. Schools have worse problems than this. We're going to be the school that people are going to come to and say, how did you guys deal with this? Because we hear that it's still right there. So that's what my goal is here.
That's our goal as well. We appreciate you coming.
Well put.
Yeah, well put. Okay, if it's okay with everybody, can we just move along? I mean, we'll definitely be in touch with you ladies. If you give your names to Pat, you know, or contact information, you know.
He's stuck with us now.
Yeah. Well, that's good. We'll look forward to seeing you.
You had a very positive way of presenting the problem and the way to move forward.
Put it on there.
Okay, thank you.
I know we said a lot, but as a parent, I think, and parents in this room, I think if we reread page 14 in the parent-student handbook from page 14, 20, 22, and 58, but 14 says what Warren's about. It's civility and character, board policy 8:32. The Warren Township High Board of Education is committed to creating and maintaining a working and learning environment that is free of all types of fear and intimidation. Based upon our core belief that individuals are entitled to be treated with dignity and respect, it is the policy of the Warren Township High School District 121 to promote mutual respect, civility, and orderly conduct among its district employees, students, parents, any person on school grounds, or at school activities, and the public. Any individual entering Warren Township School District 121 property or attending school district-sponsored activities, including but not limited to extracurricular activities, board meetings, athletic events, shall treat others with dignity and respect. This policy is not intended to deprive any person of his or her right to freedom of expression, but only to maintain to the extent possible a reasonable, a safe, a harassment-free educational atmosphere for the school community with minimal disruptions. The school district encourages positive communication, discourages volatile, hostile, and aggressive behaviors. The district expects public cooperation in this endeavor.
Thank you, Kevin. Okay. Thank you, everybody. We greatly appreciate all of you coming. Thank you very much. We'll look forward to seeing you all again, or hearing from you, or being in the meetings with you. So thank you very much.
Just a couple other things for the board and superintendent's report. Thanks for on Friday, we, in addition to having obviously the conversation with Jessica, we were also very fortunate that it was Veterans Day, and we had school on Veterans Day. So our band and finance department
Started our
nice
parent
job
list.
again.
Your name and the campus that your kids go to and your phone.
So we wanted to show you that.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you very much.
We also wanted to talk a little bit about our centennial events report. So this is just things that we've done. So for those of you, a very timely production. You know, I'm a honest way. So in my whole life, I was on this honest.
I did too, yeah.
Something in my life that was wrong. But for those of you that didn't see it, it was awesome, very timely with the Cubs winning, obviously. Our band boosters craft fair, all of big success. And these pictures are the ones, by the way, that June does a great job collecting. We got monthly or every couple of weeks of snap pics out to our staff. Ribbon Week was from the 24th to the 28th. Just to look ahead a little bit.
Thank you.
So student council has decided to do about this December. We're already, as was mentioned earlier, from our English, Tim and Heather, we're already in the midst of trying to do course selection stuff. It's already period. We'll be in here on November 29th. 30th. We've got the Children's Play sponsored by the Foundation on December 3rd, and that is Cinderella. Yes. Gymnastics, remember these other athletic events are our centennial events, so we have to get rid of crowds out to them, get a number of kids that may not normally attend some of these. Like gymnastics meet is a good one. Janet concert is December 8th. The Avanza competition is the 9th. If you remember on December 10th, that's kind of a special Saturday for us. That's our Saturday that Mark's been working hard on to try to have a number of basketball kind of events going on. We've got a girls varsity game prior to a boys varsity game against Lake Forest, I think. So trying to bring in a number of fans from both of those games to celebrate basketball. And then we've got a number of other events going on later in December. So that is Centennial Report. I did want to make two other little announcements. The school report card is up and live now on ISB's site, so any school, obviously, including Warren, that's a formal announcement that it is up and running, so I have to do that every year, just to let the board know and the community know that the Illinois school report cards are up from last year. And the second thing is that I'll publicly say, even though now the public is slim to us, but I think we've decided to have the December meeting shifted from the 20th of December to the 13th of December. So we'll just, for the whole meeting, so then we'll start with a closed session tentatively at 6:30 on that. So we'll start posting that right away and getting that out to the media. Gene, if you remember that one, so that'll help us. Sound good?
Gene will send an invitation on it. Thank you.
They're so tiny. Okay, are you done?
I'm done. Thank you very much.
So you talked about the Illinois school report card, or you can, that was just mentioned that it was ready, or it's out there.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
We can download it and look at the information and,
Yep.
and
Yeah, that was.
maybe we can have it on a future board meeting to see how we're doing. Okay, next on the agenda is the information regarding the sale of the Series 2016 A bonds.
Just a quick update on the sale of the bonds. We sold them on November 1st. Our target was a savings to the taxpayers of approximately $401,000. The results came in at a little over $350,000, which were very good results. It was a net present value return of 6.2%, which was very good. So we're very happy to be able to do that for our taxpayers and for the district. The total interest cost was 2.2%. So another successful refinance for the taxpayers and for the district.
Very nice job.
Thank you. Next item is the resolution approving, or resolution authorizing the estimated aggregate tax levy for the year 2016.
I move to approve the resolution authorizing the estimated aggregate tax levy for the year 2016.
Second.
Roll call.
Motion by Biondi, second by Mundo. Mr. Walls?
Yes.
Ms. Campbell?
Yes.
Mr. Mundo?
Yes.
Mrs. Conway?
Yes.
Mrs. Biondi?
Yes.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
I have 6 yes. Motion carries.
All right. Next item is the approval of the payment of the bills for 11/15/2016, which is minus the legal bills. So if there's no questions, we need a motion.
I'd like, after the motion's made, to ask a question.
I move to approve the payment of the bills for 11/15/2016 in the amount of $9,347,625.74.
Second.
Mr. Walls.
Carol, I know they're not your pencil notes, but there were some checks that were voided and reissued. Are those notes going to appear with the bills on the website?
If the board would like them that way, we can do that.
I think that would be very good, helpful for the public to understand.
Okay, that's
And
fine
the same
with me.
with the last group too.
Yes.
Last month's bills.
we'll do that.
Okay, thank you so
Sure.
much.
Roll call.
Motion by Anderson, second by Walls. Mr. Munda?
Yes.
Ms. Campbell?
Yes.
Mrs. Biondi?
Yes.
Mrs. Conway?
Yes.
Mr. Walls?
Yes.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
I have 6 yes, motion carries.
Next item is the approval of the payment of the legal services bill for 11/15/2016.
I'll move to approve the payment of legal service bills for 11/15/2016 in the amount of $4,450.79.
Second. Roll call.
Motion by Munda, second by Anderson. Mrs. Conway?
Yes.
Mr. Walls?
Yes.
Ms. Campbell?
No.
Mrs. Biondi?
No?
Mr. Munda?
Yes.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
4 yes, 2 no, motion carries.
Next item is the approval of the hiring recommendations.
Can I just clarify, I have not said to the public in a number of months why I vote no, and I would like to state for the record that
I think everybody knows that. Kevin.
it's because
Everybody in
when
America.
I was on the Woodland School Board, they billed for work they did not do, and I don't trust them.
Allegedly.
No.
And not only that, but there were some other issues that which we won't discuss, but, okay, the hiring recommendations. I move to approve as Exhibit A hiring recommendations number 121 through 131 as posted.
Second.
Roll call.
Motion by Anderson, second by Munda. Mrs. Conway?
Yes.
Mrs. Campbell?
Yes.
Mr. Walls?
Yes.
Mrs. Biondi?
Yes?
Mr. Munda?
Yes.
And Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
6 yes, motion carries.
Next item is the regular meeting minutes and executive session minutes of the October 26, 2016 board meeting.
I move to approve, sorry.
Go ahead.
I move to approve the regular meeting minutes and executive session minutes of October 25th, 2016.
Second. Roll call.
Motion by Conway, second by Anderson.
Correct.
Mr. Munda?
Yes.
Mrs. Biondi?
Yes.
Ms. Campbell?
Yes.
Mrs. Conway?
Yes.
Mr. Walls?
Yes.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
I have 6 yes, motion carries.
Next item is the approval of the special meeting minutes and executive session minutes of November 7, 2016.
Mr. President, I find something that in the closed minutes that I disagree with. I think it was misunderstood by someone, and so I don't know how to correct it since they were closed minutes. Since we don't get these until tonight when we come into this room, there was no...
Well, they're in your board packet before tonight.
They're in my board packet? Is that true?
I never had it.
I've never had them.
I'm-
They're not in...
Right here?
They're in
They're
mine.
Well, they're not in
Not
mine.
in mine.
Are we talking regular or closed?
Oh,
Close.
executive session. Oh, I'm sorry.
Close.
I was looking at the wrong one. I'm sorry.
Okay,
Okay.
got me. I disagree with something, and I don't know if I can bring it up here,
Oh, I
or
would say
what do
probably not.
we do, how do we correct it? Can we postpone it so that
Which
we can
meeting?
talk to it the November 7th meeting?
How
How do we do- how do we
to talk
handle
about that in
this?
executive session?
I mean, I don't know. I'm, you know.
Can you whisper? No, I'm just kidding.
I can write a note and everybody can read it, but I don't think that's acceptable.
We can wait. It doesn't matter. We can wait.
Can we postpone it until next?
It doesn't matter. We have a lot of time. so.
Okay, I'd like to.
So I move we table item H on the agenda to the next board meeting.
Can I just ask another question?
Not about that.
We have the October 25th meetings, but it's minutes of the closed session, but it's not on the agenda. Did I?
It says regular meeting
It
minutes
says regular
and
and
executive
executive
session
session
meeting
minutes.
minutes.
Okay, it's up there. Okay,
It's
thanks, Barb.
Yep.
It's there.
So are you?
We're tabling H.
Just
Number-
both sets or
No,
just?
No, just H.
Just H.
It was my
So yes,
misunderstanding.
so closed it
Both
open.
for H for now.
Adelaide,
It'll just be
is
easier.
that a question that you asked?
Yes.
Yes.
So I move we table both this.
You're welcome, Jim.
The approval of the special meeting minutes and executive session minutes of November 7, 2016.
Thank you.
Second.
Roll call. All right. I'll give it to you later.
Okay.
Mr. Anderson and Mrs. Conway.
Yep.
Mrs. Biondi,
Yes.
Ms. Campbell,
Yes.
Mr. Walls,
Yes.
Mr. Munda.
Yes.
Mrs. Conway,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson.
Yes.
I have 6 yes, motion carries.
That is the last item on the agenda, so I move we adjourn the meeting.
So,
Roll call.
Getting there, Mr. Anderson, motion by Anderson, second by
Linda.
Mr. Walls,
yes.
Mrs. Conway,
Yes.
Ms. Campbell,
Yes.
Mrs. Biondi,
Yes.
and Mr. Munda,
Yes.
and Mr. Anderson.
Yes.
I have 6 yes, motion carries.
Thank you, everybody.